Welcome to the Business of Story, where we connect you with the leading minds in the art of business storytelling. Learn from best-selling authors, Hollywood screenwriters, makers, content marketers, and brand raconteurs on how to craft and sell compelling stories that sell. The Business of Story is brought to you by Oracle Marketing Cloud, helping businesses use the latest marketing technologies to tell their stories and connect with their customers. Emma, which provides innovative email marketing tools and services that drive brilliant results. Act Content Management Software, organizing all your prospect details in one place so you can prioritize your day and market more effectively. And by Convince and Convert, digital marketing advisors and counselors to leading brands and organizations worldwide. Convince and Convert helps you gain and keep your customers online. Here's your host, Park Howell.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of The Business of Story. I'm Park Howell, and I am charged with connecting you with some of the top story artists from around the world to help you craft and tell compelling stories that sell. So on today's show, we have a really interesting guest from a very interesting place. And this place is the source for these next three headlines, and I'm curious if you can figure out what that is. Headline number one. Advisors hopeful Jeb Bush finally has momentum to end campaign. 2. Concept car designer struggling to think of good new ways for doors to open. And finally, Nicoderm introduces new nicotine eye patch. Well, these headlines all come from America's finest news source, The Onion. The Onion is that farcical online newspaper that features world, national, and community quote-unquote news. It's hysterical. We have on today's show Eric Munn, Onion Labs social media strategist, and he'll share with us digital storytelling, how they go about it. And he'll also explain what is Onion Labs and how is it different than The Onion, the newspaper. Plus, he will share the 3 ingredients that go into every humorous tweet and post that comes out of The Onion. We'll learn what a thumb stopper is and why Onion Labs produces Easter egg hunts all year long. And finally, if you ever get the chance to go to work, have you ever thought of what that first day on the job might look like? Well, I asked Eric, if I walked in there tomorrow, what is the advice that they would give me to be a top storyteller in the digital realm, in the true philosophy of The Onion and Onion Labs? So let's get after it. Eric, welcome to Business of Story.
Thanks, Park. Happy to be here.
Oh, it's great having you. Now, I got to tell you, I was traveling a couple weeks ago in Seattle. In fact, I had just landed and we were driving to my folks' house and it was pouring rain and it was as dark as you can imagine, as every stereotypical thought you could bring together when you think about Seattle in January. And I got a note from our producer, Jess, that said The Onion wanted to be on Business of Story. And on one hand, my heart leapt and said, hey, this is awesome, getting The Onion's attention. And then my very next thought was, oh no, this is like going on the Daily Show in one of those interviews and they're going to come in and lampoon and satire the business of story. And then I thought, hey man, that old adage of all PR is good PR. So anyways, welcome Eric to Business of Story.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. And I think we all have that experience, all of us who work here at The Onion. I remember when I got the first email about if I was interested in a position they had. And I literally had mixed feelings of this is amazing and someone is pranking me right now. And luckily, I'm still here. I do think it's a clerical error on their part. I don't know how they found me or why they trust me, but it's great to be here and happy to chat about what I do in the Business of Story.
Well, I love The Onion. I haven't been to it in a while, and I jump back into it just because I find it's an absolute rabbit hole for me. Once I start reading the articles, I laugh my ass off. I'm sharing them all around the world, and I lose a half of day of my life. But I did pull it up this morning, and I was cracking up. The very first headline was wealthy donors pump millions into Sanders' campaign in last-ditch effort to destroy his credibility. Just beautiful. Following the CNN town hall show last night, just really cracked me up. So how did you find yourself at The Onion, and what do you do for The Onion?
Sure. So I, too, have been a fan of The Onion since I was probably 17 years old, which one shows how old I am and how old The Onion has been around. But I have worked in marketing and advertising most of my post-college career. I started at a very small startup company that at the time was called Train Signal. They've since been bought out. But this was back in the wild, wild west days of social media when few brands had accounts, let alone knew what they were doing. And I was brought on to try and get a big social following for this company. And the plus of those days back then was there really were no rules. You could talk about anything, talk to anyone. And since we were one of the first brands out on social, we got a really big following. Because we were active and engaged and really interested in the community. That got seen by the advertising agency Ogilvy and Mather. They saw what was going on and they poached me, and I went to then work on much larger campaigns for brands like Jim Beam, CDW, Braintree, a lot of different things, and was doing really well there. And that got seen by The Onion, who at the time when they reached out to me had just started a company inside The Onion called Onion Labs. What Onion Labs is the advertising marketing wing of The Onion. So the thought why it was created is The Onion has been around for a long time and has had a lot of fans and followers from all over the world. And many of those are people who work for companies. And The Onion was continually getting asked, hey, we would love The Onion to write our next spot, for whatever, Coca-Cola or whoever it may be. And for the longest time, because The Onion writers, as awesome as they are, said, no, we will never write for a brand where, we do this for a living. They didn't want to lose that kind of objectiveness, the fact that they kind of get to write whatever they want about whoever they want with no concern. Well, the owner at the time of The Onion just could not turn away this money that many brands were willing to pay. So he said, well, why not create an in-house ad agency at The Onion called Onion Labs? They will be staffed by people who know the voice of The Onion, can write in it, know our audience, know how to get them to engage, and it will be all internal. And so I was brought on to lead their social practice, which is create content for brands that will have that Onion tone and wit and intelligence to it, but will get engaged with by not only the Onion audience, but perhaps an entirely new audience for this brand that is reaching out to us. So I've been doing that now for a year, and it's amazing and super fun, and I really enjoy doing it.
Okay, Eric. So I'm on the Onion site right now, and I've got a photo of two doctors. They're both in white lab coats, and there's one man sitting at a collection of microphones, obviously having some sort of press conference, and there's another doctor in the background, a little bit out of focus with his hands over his head, in like painful contemplation. And the headline states, Researchers announced they don't have heart to reveal what will happen to 1 in 5 women. And the article is very funny that goes on to it. But for our audience members that don't know what The Onion is, and we've got listeners all over the world, can you share with us what is The Onion and how did it get its start?
Well, I'll give 2 answers. I'll give what is believed answer, which is The Onion is the world's finest news source. It was created in the 1700s by a onion farmer who only could speak 2 words of English when he came to America, which were the onion. And from there, it's grown. Now, that's the ridiculous answer. The true answer is The Onion is a satirical newspaper. It was started, I believe, in Wisconsin in the late 80s or early 90s as just like a student newspaper, kind of commenting on what was going on. And from there, it's grown to commenting on politics, news, science, entertainment. And not only is The Onion, which is their probably most popular publication. They also have many others that have started to grow and do well. There's the AV Club, which is not satire, but actual reviews of pop culture, movies, television, books, etc. There's Clickhole, which is a satirical take on sites like BuzzFeed and Upworthy and other kind of link bait type of sites. And then there's Starwipe, which is the most recent publication, which is the take on People Magazine, Us Magazine, TMZ, that type of world. They're growing and it's doing really well. Many people like to call The Onion a fake newspaper, but I would argue that's actually far from it. Some of the most popular Onion articles and the ones that I think are the funniest are the ones that when we read it, we go, oh my, that is so true. Even though it's probably never said on actual news organizations, it's, I think, the funniest thing about there. So that's really what The Onion is in a nutshell.
Absolutely. To me, it's a little bit like The Daily Show used to be anyways with Jon Stewart, where they would take a humorous look. Yours, I think, is more satirical. And for instance, one of the headlines in articles that stuck up in my mind a couple months ago when Amazon was being beaten up by the hours they worked their folks was the headline with Bezos there saying, Jeff Bezos assures Amazon employees that HR working 100 hours a week to address their complaints. I think just a really fun way to look at what's happening, in the world around us. And of course, it's just very engaging content. It's all about the storytelling. So you were brought in to not only, it sounds like, head up the social strategy and media to get more attention to The Onion. And you were saying back in the, in the wild pioneering days of social media, but really, when was that? 2008, 9, 10, something like that?
Yeah, that was when I was my career first started, but I've only been here at Onion Labs for just a little over a year, I guess, coming up on 2 years, so 2014. But yeah, so it's relatively new to the organization here. But as you said, one of the pluses is the Onion has already been so good at storytelling that it's actually not too heavy of a lift for us as the ad side of the company. It was really just bringing us on, really learning the voice. It was great. They had us all sit down with the editor-in-chief of The Onion and kind of learn how they write the articles they write, the process they use, et cetera, so that we could use those same tactics when we're writing content for brands. Because if we're going to put the Onion label behind something, we want it to be just as good as what would go up on theonion.com.
So you have shared with me some of the campaigns that Onion Lab has done, and they're really very funny. This one I'm looking at right now, and I don't know how quickly to get our listeners to it if they want to go, but it's for Bacardi. At Bacardi, hashtag real cocktails. And this looks like a campaign you ran over the holidays. And what it is a quick little cocktail a menu, something, to take you through and ingredients for a cocktail. In this case, it's called the Sherry Daiquiri, a.k.a. your cousin's loud girlfriend. They have a picture of the daiquiri there, but this lady, laughing out of control in the background. It's 2 parts Bacardi Superior Rum, 2/5 part fresh cream, 2/5 part. Is there any such thing as 2/5? I'm not sure what that is. And anyways, your copy here is pour in a blender and run on high to drown out Sherry's annoying laugh. A real cocktail. And you have a series of these. What goes into telling this joke and making this joke work visually as well as a narrative in a very quick, fleeting medium like social media?
Exactly. So the first thing that we always start with when we're coming up with a campaign is what's the truth? Because that's what works here when we're writing articles for The Onion, which is, what's happening in the world and what's the truth that we can make the joke of. And so the same thing, we use that same logic when we're trying to work on a campaign for a brand. So when Bacardi came to us and said, hey, we want to do something around the holidays, drinking is definitely a big thing around that time. What can we do? And a lot of people would go the route of drink to have a good time. Well, one thing we realized that's a truth is a lot of people drink because they're not having a good time during the holidays. So we wanted to combine that truth also with a truth that we see in social media in general, which is one of the things that gets shared so well. And you see it with the popularity of Pinterest and even on Facebook now with companies like Tasty, where these ingredient recipes are just hits, right? That people, one, love it because they can make it, and two, the things look good. And so we wanted to have some fun with that. All of these cocktails that we created are actual real cocktails. You can perform them. The drink recipes were provided to us by a mixologist that works at Bacardi. And then we just added the final punchline to each little recipe there that was tailored to a specific instance that we all face during the holidays. And we combine that with nice, beautiful images of the cocktails you mentioned, and in the background, whatever the kind of scenario is, which in this one was the annoying laugh of Sherry. So really what it comes down to, and I think this is one of the secrets of social, so I'm giving away a little bit here. I hope that's okay, which is people think, oh man, I have so little space. Like Twitter, for example, I have 140 characters. Well, what people forget is you have some play there, especially with images. All those steps that you just read were in the image itself. They weren't in the tweet. The tweet copy is actually just a one-line joke that kind of draws the reader in. But from there, they then read the actual full joke in the image, and you have a lot more ability to play with an image, not only visually from what you can do. And our staff here, oh my gosh, the art department here is ridiculous. The Photoshop quality they have is bar none. And so really any idea I can think of, they can put in an image, which one gets a story across and a joke across very quickly, which is good. And then two, this cocktail recipe is that kind of second story. And I think the third part of it is also the name of the drink. It's all something, the hope is that it can tie back to something we've all experienced. So all of that goes into kind of telling that story. I think the hashtag was really useful as well with real cocktail, which is, this is a real scenario, but there's also that kind of second spin on it, which is, this is an actual drink you can make. So we had a lot of fun with the campaign and it did super well. I think one of the main reasons it did really well is we created quite a few of these. I believe there were 15 in total that were created. And so what helped when we did something like that is you could reach so many different type of people, because you can make jokes about relatives. You can make jokes about being single on the holidays. You can make jokes about having to deal with your ex on the holidays, whatever it may be. There's so many different types of jokes you can make, which means you can make even more cocktails, which means you can reach out to even more people. So it was a really great campaign and really proud of it.
Well, and one other in this series that I like, that I laughed out loud this morning when I looked at it, having been just in Seattle and visiting my 89 and 90-year-old parents, who are wonderful people, yes, still going strong. But after 30 years in the advertising and marketing business, they still don't know what I do. So the tweet here is, thanks to this Bacardi hashtag real cocktail, I'm doing okay explaining what the internet is to my grandparents for the fifth time. And then you've got a picture of this old guy in the background, this beautiful cocktail, and it's called the Old Forgetful. It's 1 part Bacardi Super Rum, 3 parts Fresca, and your copy is stir in highball glass with ice while explaining to your grandparents what you do for a living again. So I just laughed at that. I thought that was perfect. And I love that idea where you're talking about you've got 15 or so in this campaign, which allows you then to address different audiences. And in that process, Eric, at Onion Labs, do you do much in the way of customer personas, or do you kind of outline the audiences you're going to, create a messaging mix, and then work your stories from there? Or how do you get there to make them so spot on?
Yeah, what it really starts off with is a little bit of a conversation with the client of who are they trying to target. So we can find out from there, the age range, the demographics, et cetera. Once we know that, then we actually have data on the Onion's audience. So we know, okay, there's going to be a certain percentage of our audience that is female, a certain percentage that is male, that is college educated, that is currently in school, that is single. And knowing all those, we break those out, and then from there go, okay, which ones have we hit jokes on and which ones have we not yet? And just brainstorm away until we've got stuff that we think hits every area and hopefully passes Bacardi's legal team for approval.
Gotcha. Now, do you ever have clients that come to you thinking that they want the Onion spin on their work, only to be sort of, worried about it, worried that you're making too much fun of them and their brand?
All the time. Actually, it's very funny you bring that up. There was an Onion article, I believe yesterday or 2 days ago, that just went live. The title of it, which was "Company Just Wants Advertising to Have Fun with It," and then the body of the text reveals that they did not have any interest in us having fun with it, and wanted to make sure we mentioned their brand name as many times in the piece as we could. Yes, this is definitely the biggest struggle, I think, which is there's that very early excitement of wanting to work with the Onion and get something done. But then there's kind of two, and I think deserved concerns that come, and sometimes both, and sometimes you get one or the other. One is this too different than what we've been doing? We as a brand have already established a voice. If we go in this new route, are we going to either alienate our current fan base? Are we going to confuse people, et cetera? So that's a concern that we get a lot of the time. And then the second is just from a legal end of, well, we can't show this, or we can't say that, or we can't do this. So a lot of it is just working back and forth on what we can do. One is a lot of trust, which is hoping to get clients to understand, look, we know our audience and we know how they react. And one thing we have going for us, and especially in this current age of social and digital, you have so much data, which is great to have because you can give examples of, well, here's when we gave in a lot for a client, and here's the performance level it received. And here's when a client gave us a lot more free range to do what we wanted to do, and here's the type of engagements it received. And so luckily we have a lot of that to back up kind of what works for the Onion audience and what doesn't. But the other side of it that I think we remind clients a lot, which is in this day and age of social and digital, the community has the ability to respond and react. And if you make something that we know the Onion audience is not going to react to because it's not written in the Onion voice and given that quality it deserves, your best scenario is that it falls flat. But more likely than not, you could get a very large negative reaction from the Onion audience, which is bad for both of us, right? It's bad for the brand because they now have to deal with negative comments and the whole backlash that exists there. And then it's bad for us as the Onion because our followers then start going, oh my gosh, is this the type of content I'm going to see if I follow the Onion? So luckily, in the year and a half since I've been here, we've done very well at learning the audience more and creating campaigns that work better so that we have less and less of those. But you definitely get clients who come in and want to change a lot, and we have to show them as much data as we can that says, look, we don't think this is a good thing, but in the end, they are the ones paying and putting the content out there. So, we'll give in when we finally have to, but I think most of the time we reach a very good agreement. And our goal is never to hurt a brand. Our team here is very just as much about making a fun, interesting piece of content that we're proud of. So we would never want to do anything that would detriment that.
Sure. But the Onion just by itself is living on an edge of satire. On one hand, it has to be funny. Otherwise, you don't want to lose your edge there. And then, calling out what's happening in the world around. So if you get a brand in there and you have that same sort of tension going on, it's probably really good for creative, I would imagine, because everybody has to stay at the tops of their games. And if it makes that client feel a little nervous, probably the more nervous, the better. If they're really going after the sensibilities of having the Onion speak, on their behalf for their brand.
Yeah, we say that a lot of times. If you're feeling nervous, we're doing something right. And we get a lot of the nervous laughs over the phone, which is someone realizing this is a really funny thing, but oh man, this is something that they have never seen before.
Well, we'll need to take a break right now, but I was looking at your one of your tweets for Firehouse subs, and you've got a fireman Fireman carrying a person to the table, and the tweet says, firefighters make great chefs because they'll fireman carry you to your table. TheOnion.com. Very, very funny. But let us take a break for our wonderful sponsors. And when we get back, let's explore a little bit more about this concept, this philosophy of the onion, and how more brands can take advantage of having more fun in their marketing. So we'll be back right after this. Are you keeping track of sales leads in a spreadsheet? Or worse, Post-it notes all over your desk? Well, there's a better way, and it doesn't involve spending a fortune on complex CRM software. For over 25 years, ACT has been the #1 best-selling contact and customer management software. It's super affordable and easy to use. ACT helps individuals, small businesses, and sales teams organize prospect and customer details in one place. It helps market products and services more effectively, and most importantly, ACT drives sales. So try ACT free for 30 days by visiting actstory.com and sign up for a chance to win a pair of Bose Quiet Comfort 20i acoustic noise canceling headphones, a $299 value. Again, that's actstory.com. Hey, I've got a question for you. What's the best call to action button color on your website? Yeah, you probably didn't see that one coming, did you? Well, what's the best shape and sizes of your CTA buttons? And what copy gets more clicks? You know, these questions have interrupted my sleep patterns for weeks now, until I downloaded a helpful new email marketing guide from Emma called Why We Click: The Psychology Behind a Great Call to Action. You'll learn how applying just a little bit of brain science can transform your CTA buttons into small but mighty conversion powerhouses. It covers the button color, copy, and placement that helps skyrocket click rates. Check it out at myemma.com/click. You know, Emma helps marketers everywhere send smart, stylish email newsletters, promotions, and automated campaigns, and help us all rest a little easier knowing our email marketing is doing its job. So check out their new publication at myemma.com/click. Welcome back to Business of Story, and our guest today, Eric Munn, the Onion Labs social media lead. It's great having you on the show here today.
Thanks, Park. Yeah, it's a really fun conversation.
So as the social media lead at Onion Labs, are you also involved in the story creation, the creative creation? And to that end, how does storytelling, have you found, lend itself to branded content?
Yes, I am definitely involved in not only the distribution of content, but the creation of it, and early on, even concepting. And social has, I think, made me an even better storyteller. Or maybe I'm being too
How
egotistical,
so?
but I think you have so little time, right, and space. The social media for most people is a break in what they're doing. They are living their normal lives, and they pull out their phone maybe after they've finished some project at work or during lunch or on their trip back, and so they're scrolling through a feed of endless amounts of content, and you really have to stand out and get there. And so for me, when I think of that area, when I'm coming up with a story that I need to be able to tell in a Facebook post, in a tweet, in an Instagram photo, I immediately think, okay, one, what's going to grab their eye? And this is where the power of our art department comes in. What is that strong visual? And we've just seen it over and over. Visuals are such a powerful medium on social. They stand out a lot more than simple text does. And they're not as network dependent, I guess you could say, as a video, where, depending on your connection, videos might not load, it might not look good. An image almost always loads. So for me, it starts with, okay, what's that image? When I'm writing the idea, I start to picture, what is the thing I'm going to see in my feed that's going to make me, we call them thumb stoppers. What's going to make me stop my thumb from scrolling and go, what is this? And so once I have that strong visual, you then have to start to explain, what is this that I'm seeing? And is it explained in the text? Is it explained in the Facebook copy or the tweet copy, or is it explained in the image through text on there or more information? From there, the last thing is, what is the call to action? What am I asking someone to do when they're looking at this content? Is it a straight awareness play where they're just going, oh, I've never heard of this brand or service, and now I do. Very interesting. Thank you. Moving on. Is it go sign up? Is it click here to watch more? Is it share this if you agree? Is it reply with your own? I think a lot of brands forget what is that call to action? What is it your desired thing is for your reader, and can you get those three things? So to me, it's, can you get a nice strong image, explain the story, and explain what the reader is supposed to do seeing this all in one piece. And it can be difficult for sure, especially as it feels like more and more social websites are getting shorter and shorter. It seems like you have less and less time with things like Vines and Snapchats, which are just quick, short, simple. How quickly can you get it off? But that's really kind of where I come in and use my expertise to get that idea out as quickly as possible. And I think we here at The Onion have done it well, because if you think about what made The Onion popular and what still keeps it very popular is the headline, right? Mm-hmm. It's a one-line joke that is the first thing to draw someone in. And sometimes it's so powerful that it's all the person reads and they immediately share it with their friends and family without even doing any further action. But that's the same goal I have with brands, is what's that one thing I can draw you in with immediately that you'll agree with? And then from there, move you on to whatever the next steps may be.
Well, it's interesting as you're describing that, and being the business storytelling dweeb I just dissect it and study it down. It always seems to come back to this 3-act play, even the way you explained it. So your thumb stoppers is act 1. What's the setting? What do you have there to grab your audience's attention? Act 2 then is explain what I'm seeing, what's happening here. And it could be through the visual, through the text, through the tweet, or a combination thereof. And then act 3 is that call to action, that synthesis. I want you to do something, be it share it, click it, or it's just brand awareness. And I'm looking at one of the vines that you created here for Chester Cheetah. And this is for the Sweetos. And at first I didn't quite get it, but then I took a second look at it and I said, oh, I get it. It's a guy it's at Christmas again, another holiday setting. He gives his girlfriend a bag of Cheetos or Sweetos, I guess. And she goes to dump out, hopefully, the Sweetos so she can eat them. And what does she get is a wedding ring, but she's upset because she gets a wedding ring and not the snack. So that all happens literally Shakespeare in 6 seconds for Sweetos.
Exactly. Yeah. So this was an interesting request from Cheetos, so Sweetos is their, I guess, sweet version of Cheetos. It's kind of got like a cinnamon toast crunch flavor to it, and they're quite good actually.
With a name like Sweetos, they've got to be good.
Many were eaten during the shoot, I will say that, but. They really wanted Vines. They really wanted to go after a younger audience because. And I think it makes sense. Sweetos definitely are going to be a little more childish. You're going to have a little more fun. It's definitely not like a healthy snack, if you will. But they wanted to get that younger audience, which Vine definitely has a lot of them. So they wanted us to create a series of Vines to kind of get people excited about Sweetos and relate them to the holidays. And so, yeah, I remember writing the storyboards, if that's what we want to call them for this. It was
story napkins, really, when you get right down to
it. It was an Excel document that just had a square for second 1, second 2, second 3, second 4, second 5, second 6. And we had to really lay out, okay, what's happening in that first second, and then the second, and third, because we have no time in this to really explain it. And so in that example that you listed, here is the boyfriend on the couch. Here he is holding up a bag. Here's the girlfriend's reaction of excitement that she's getting Sweetos. Here's the ring falling into her hand.
The disappointment of the wedding ring.
Here's her reaction of anger that it's not Sweetos. And then here's her walking away and the boyfriend in confusion. And actually what's and I like how you described your reaction to it, which was a little confusion at first, and then after a rewatch is understanding. This is another power of Vine that I think a lot of people forget. Vines loop. They don't stop. They just continually circulate over and over again. So one of the great things about it is if you have a concern that, oh man, is someone going to be able to digest everything that just happened here in 6 seconds? Well, most people, I believe the data that I've seen, watch a Vine 4 times in a row before they move on to the next one, because it's such a small amount of time for them to devote to that. Even watching a Vine 4 times in a row is about 24 seconds. That's not too long for anyone. So that's what I really liked about this campaign is, one, you start to realize what the joke is after the second or third watch. And two, it allows us to throw in what I always love to do when I'm working on stuff, are Easter eggs. I don't think there are any in this one, but some of the others will have things like in the background or in the foreground that, if the first time through you probably didn't see it, but in the second and third, you start to kind of find those little jokes, which is always fun for us.
Yeah, that's cool. And the other thing about that, not getting it the first time, I simply am that dopey guy on the right there saying, why doesn't she like this? And then it took me a second. I'm going, oh man, that's me, I guess. I didn't realize what was happening.
Yeah.
Really great content. Stories that you all are doing are very powerful. And of course, you're coming from a very, foundational storytelling place as The Onion. But And everyone says content is king, and yet we are overrun with content. Now, Eric, can you guys just put this stuff out there and let it run? And what's your percentage of them going viral? Or do, clients have to put a lot of money behind this as well to cut through the clutter?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but I definitely think some. I think one of the most frustrating / laughable things, every single brief we get from a client has probably the sentence or a variation of, we want this to go viral, as though it was just a simple thing to do. Mm-hmm. I think I read a stat today that said, just if you look at 2015 alone, the amount of content is equal to 50 Super Bowls. So you know how all this content gets created for the Super Bowl. Just in 1 year of Facebook alone, there's 50 times that created. So you're competing against all these other brands that are putting content up, and let alone brands, people. It's one of the great things about social is anyone can create anything and share it and get a lot of reaction. So as funny or as amazing as our content can be, we always suggest that brands set a little money aside. And this is one of the other great things about social, because it's still somewhat new and an interesting kind of area, and these social sites want brands to become more involved. It's actually fairly cheap to get impressions. It doesn't cost a lot, and especially if you add targeting. If you know you only want to go after a certain age, location, gender, and then you can even go off specific interests, etc. The more tailored you make it, you're making it even better on yourself, that you can make sure that your money's being spent well. And this really comes down to me for 3 reasons why you're going to need to spend some money. One, you need to break through the clutter. Everyone else is coming on to their feeds, and you need to make sure that you stand out. And the only way you'll do that is by paying some money that says, I want to make sure I get shown in a Facebook feed, a Twitter feed, an Instagram feed, whatever it may be. The second is you don't want wasted impressions, which is having your content seen by people that aren't interested in your content. You want to make sure you're going towards that correct audience, whether it be age, et cetera. And then third is you want your fans to see it. Just because someone likes you on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram doesn't mean they're going to see your content. It depends on when they log in. It depends on algorithms, et cetera. And these people have taken the time out of their day to say, hey, I like what you do as a brand. I want to see more of you. So make sure they see it. And the guaranteed way to do that is to put some money behind it. Back when I worked at the small startup, as I mentioned, I had a budget of $500 a year, and that was it. And we got over 12,000 fans in that year. So you can do a lot with a little. Now, I know times have changed and a lot of brands have a lot of money, but I still think that you can do a lot with a little, and make sure, because you're spending so much time, energy, and even money on this content, make sure people are seeing it. And we've seen it here at The Onion that just putting a little bit behind gets that Onion audience that we know who loves what we do to see it. And then once they start engaging with it, it spreads like wildfire.
And one more question before we go to the break. The Onion, of course, being America's finest news source, according to the Onion Labs Twitter feed, you use your own platforms, the Onion platforms, to help spread the word about your clients. But does that online social footprint go much further beyond that? Or how do you balance that between using your own media empire and a client's own social channels?
Yeah, we tell them right up front when we're working with when the clients we work with, it's co-owned, or I think actually legally they own all of it, the content. So part of our deal with them is, and one of the reasons many clients come to us is because of our audience. I believe the total combined size of the Onion's audience is somewhere around 11 million plus. So even just reaching 1% of our audience is pretty big for a lot of brands. So we share everything out through our social channels, which we create it. It goes out first through Labs, and then the Onion will share Labs content through each of their individual social channels. So it all goes out there. And the reason for that is we don't want to trick our audience. We want our audience to know when is it from the Onion and when is it a sponsored piece of content from Onion Labs. And actually, that was such a powerful thing for us to do, because early on, that was not how it was done. The Onion would just share everything, and we saw a lot of negativity. But now that we've created a separate space for Onion Labs, the Onion audience is very understanding. They get this is one reason that the Onion can stick around and keep creating the funny content is working with these type of brands. And two, they know it's going to be a much better ad than their typical one, because it's created by men and women who work at the Onion. So we've actually got a really big following. I'm amazed that Onion Labs, a Twitter account that pretty much only posts ads, has 16,000 followers, and a lot of people engage with it. That when you think about it that way, it's kind of interesting. So that's one part of it. And then the other is this is owned by the brand, so they can share it through their social channels. They can also share it through third-party media if they're buying space in other places. So it's really all for them to share wherever and however much they like.
Gotcha. Okay, so I've got a completely loaded question for you, but I'm not going to share it with you until after this break, as I would
exciting.
think a Onion reporter might do. So we'll be back right after these messages from our wonderful sponsors. Hey, if you like what you're hearing here on Business of Story, then you are going to love Definitive, the email from Convince and Convert that many marketers say is the most useful resource around. Each day, the team at Convince and Convert picks a topic and sends you the 3 best resources ever created about that topic. It's topical, it's timely, it's useful, so go to definitivedigest.com and subscribe for free right now. To tell effective business stories means to truly understand your audience, beckon them in with a story they care about, convert them into a customer, and then nurture that relationship for lifelong brand bonding. That's not always easy to do, but marketing automation has made it easier than ever. The challenge is, how do you take all that data and turn it into drama? Well, the marketing gods over at Oracle Marketing Cloud have done that for us. They've created this easy-to-read and easy-to-digest guide called Marketing Automation Simplified Guide. It offers an introduction to the 5 tenets of modern marketing and breaks down the tips marketers need to know to automate and optimize. This includes data in targeting, email marketing, lead nurturing, lead scoring, content marketing, and sales enablement. So to get your free Oracle Marketing Cloud guide, Marketing Automation Simplified, go to bit.ly/Oracle Automation. That's bit.ly/Oracle Automation, and start getting your brand story straight. Welcome back to the Business of Story and our great guest today, Eric Munn from Onion Labs, the in-house ad agency for The Onion, that famous send-up satirical newspaper which claims itself as being America's finest news source, which, I can't disagree with. I think it is pretty fine, very humorous. Eric, so here's my loaded question for you. All of us in the advertising world at one time or other have been hired by a brand that comes in and they said, we love your work. We want to be out there. We want to be disruptive. We want to have fun with this. And then we come back with campaigns and it freaks them out and they get cold sweats and they tell us to make the logo bigger and the headline, less obnoxious and whatever. So do you have a story of someone that came to you, and you don't have to reveal the name, that said, yes, we definitely want the Onion sensibilities about our brand, only to get fired for it?
Yeah, we didn't get fired. Yes, so there is one that comes to mind, and it was actually it's funny. It was not this year's, but last year's Super Bowl was it was around that campaign, and we didn't get fired as so much as we created 6 videos for them, and they only used 2. And they are a pizza brand. That's all I'll say about that. And the campaign was. What we did was we created videos that were almost like highlight reels or replays of party scenes. And you had like 2 sportscasters, if you will, commenting on what was happening at the party and using like the highlight buttons and the drawing on the screen, et cetera, to mention it. And so the pizza was there as just kind of like a in the background as something to enjoy, et cetera. And we were more commenting about scenarios that happen at Super Bowl parties. And I think what they got nervous was the entire spot is a boyfriend and girlfriend that are hosting their first Super Bowl party. And by the end of it, they pretty much break up. And I think they didn't like that they ended up fighting the whole time. And because it led to my favorite spot was we called it the interception, was he steals a piece of pizza off her plate when she's not looking, and we kind of showed it in slow motion, and I really enjoyed it. But they ended up only using 2 of them, which I think was like the first one, which was them like prepping for the party, and then a second one, which was like people having fun at the party. So they ended up cutting a lot of it, but yeah, we definitely experience it. And for us, it's, and I'm sure as you mentioned, Park, we've all gone through it. You treat it as a learning experience. You kind of figure out, okay, what could we have been maybe more clear about early on so they knew where this was coming from, or what could we have, helped establish why we think this is, funnier than not, et cetera. But in the end, you can only do so much. And I think one of the big things I've learned working here at The Onion is to not fall too in love with anything I make, because I'm always surprised, always. And I think the Onion writers would say the same thing about the content they put out on The Onion. There's stuff that I think is going to fall flat that goes huge, and there's stuff that I am so in love with and gets maybe 10 people to engage with it. And so the big thing I've learned is, you can't fall too in love with anything you create. Or you almost have to like let it go. You have to put as much energy and effort and time into it as you can. And then once it's live, just let it be and kind of hope it does what it does, because every now and then certain things like that pizza scenario happen, and you just got to let it go.
Isn't that the truth? You just never know what's going to take off.
Yeah. You can try. I mean, especially in this day of data, you would think, oh, we have all this data around social and what type of content works and what doesn't. But if that were true, every single piece of content we see would be the same then. And they're not. It totally is different. And sometimes making something too similar to a hit gets people upset that it feels like it's ripping it off or it's too close to it. So you constantly have to try something new and keep testing and hope it lands.
Yeah, there's no amount of data that can account for a human taste. You just never know what's going to happen. So as an Onion employee, do you have to be funny everywhere? I mean, do you have to go to the water cooler and be funny and go to the commissary and be funny? I mean, what if you're that guy or gal that's not funny at the Onion? Do you get thrown out on your ear? What happens?
Oh man, well, I think a lot of people when they come to visit the Onion offices, especially like when clients come in, I think they expect people running around just with rubber chickens and going crazy all over the place. It's totally not that. First off, most of us are very neurotic, nervous people, so we're already kind of socially shy. And then secondly, this is a publication, so everyone is writing constantly. I don't know how much you or your listeners are aware of the Onion process. I'll give a very brief synopsis, which is,
Great.
over the weekend, the writers will think about somewhere between 10 to 20 headlines each. So that's each individual writer. They then come into a meeting on Monday morning and pitch somewhere between 50 to 100 headlines. Those all then get whittled down to about 10 for the week. And you're just then redoing that every single week. So you're having to come up with new content, then write it, then get it live, et cetera. And you're doing this much like any other newspaper would that's having to create content every day. So there's actually very little of that kind of water cooler scene because everyone here is face down in a laptop, just typing away furiously. But I will say this, it is a very fun place when we do meet for, after work drinks on a Friday or just hanging out at a company outing. Yes, everyone here is very fun, very nice, lovable people that it's funny. The stuff you'll see go up is sometimes, I don't know if harsh is the right word, but definitely as you said earlier, kind of towing the line. And I'll meet the person who wrote it, and they're the kindest, nicest person I've ever met. So, I think it just takes a person who I think cares about the world to be able to make the jokes that they do because they get frustrated by what they see.
All right, my final question. I've just been hired by the Onion Labs. I'm a new copywriter, storyteller coming in, and you and I sit down for a cup of coffee and you introduce me to the team, and then you pull me aside and you give me your tips on successfully telling stories online. What would you tell me?
I would probably say what I was told when I came on here by our chief creative officer, Rick Hammond, who is fantastic. And it's something you've probably heard many times. Keep it simple. That's really what it comes down to. Is the joke easily understandable in a very quick amount of time and relatable? Do I get what's going on here? I don't have to understand a backstory. I don't have to have seen a previous spot. That's a big thing I think a lot of brands forget is you're posting stuff on social. This might be the first time someone has ever seen this post from you. They're not going to know if you've created an extensive campaign that has a whole story and arc to it. You have to tell that story and arc in this one individual post. So keep it simple, keep it easy to get, and keep it relatable. And I think if you do those three things, you'll be pretty successful.
Yeah, easy to say. Keep it simple, keep it easy to get, and keep it relatable. Yeah, great. Great information. I'm just writing this down madly because they seem so obvious, when you look at it. But I think there's just something about us communicators too that we tend to overcomplicate things. So the tricky part is keeping it simple, make it easy to get the joke, and keep it relatable. Excellent. Well, Eric, thank you so much for being a part of the Business of Story family here. I mean, this has been really a lot of fun, and I'm so glad that you all reached out to be on the show. My heart is now beating slower that unless you're going to take this and, do an article, which would really be cool on The Onion. But yeah, thank you for being a part of the program here.
Thanks, Park. It's been great, and I had a really great time.
All right. And thank you all for joining another edition of The Business of Story. We'll be back next Wednesday with another amazing guest. In the meantime, I know I referenced a lot of the terrific work that Onion Labs has done. You can certainly go and find it yourself, but you can also go to businessofstory.com, and I'll have a post in there with a lot of the pieces that I talked about. If you like what you're hearing, please go to iTunes and share, your thoughts about the show. Give us a rating, and if there's anything that you would like to hear more of, shoot me an email at park@businessofstory.com, and feel free to share this with your world as well. So thank you again, Eric, for joining us, and until next Wednesday, have a wonderful life.
Thanks for tuning in to The Business of Story. Don't forget there are terrific free storytelling resources for you at thebusinessofstory.com, where you'll also find the complete show archive. The Business of Story is sponsored by Oracle Marketing Cloud, Emma, ACT, and by Convince and Convert, and is produced by Convince and Convert Media. Find more great shows like The Business of Story at marketingpodcasts.com, the first search engine for marketing podcasts.